Hello everyone, it's Andrew from Gem TCG, and today's video I'm going to be talking about why flipping single cards is a better business strategy than just investing into sealed product and holding on to it for the long run. And there are some clarifications I need to make before discussing why I think that, which are if you are running a business, you need to make sales. So that way flipping is more important than just holding on to stuff. And ultimately, I think you should be focusing on both, but with the main priority being flipping. And then on if you ever have excess capital, or we're in a bear market where sealed product is just going down in price, you should be buying up a lot of sealed inventory to hold on to. But the day-to-day business strategy that you should be focusing on is on flipping singles to make a consistent profit rather than buying a booster box and holding onto it for 3 years to make a 2x or 3x profit once you sell it. And also a few quick, channel or store updates are I'm going to try out Whatnot again. I'm going to have my sister running it because she's been doing Whatnot streams before with someone else, and she really wants to do it with you all. So be on the lookout for that. I'll probably make a post saying when I'm going live. I'll probably do a short form video on it, and it'll be like opening packs on stream. So stay tuned for that. And then the next thing is I'm going to be posting more video tutorials for TCG Automate, shorter formed 1 to 2 minute videos demonstrating on how things work. And I'll still follow the daily upload schedule of my advice videos, but if you see any extra videos on demos, and that'll be the reason why. But back to the video, the main reason why I think you should be focusing more on flipping singles rather than investing in sealed product in terms of business perspective is because of the power of it's not interest, but the power of compounding your money. Because let's say you started with $100 and then you bought a collection. Let's say just to be generous and give the benefit of the doubt, let's say you only profited 10% on that collection and it took you a month to sell. That 10% would be $10 profit, which would turn into $110. And then 110, let's say you do it again, it'll turn into 120, and then 130 something, and then it'll just keep compounding over time the more you sell and the more you buy. So even if you're getting a very low profit margin, which 10% is pretty low, I wouldn't aim for, honestly, the lowest I would go is 20 to 30% profit margin, unless it's maybe a extremely expensive card. You can go lower on the profit percentage because you're still making a bigger dollar chunk. But when it comes to the typical $3 to $20 or $20+ card, getting a 30% profit margin is pretty standard and I guess easy to do. And if you just run the numbers and think of how much $100 can compound if you're getting a 10% interest and you're selling things relatively quickly, that number will very easily outgrow the number of which the sealed products will grow at. And obviously there are extremes. I've invested in 151 at $80. Now it's worth 400, and it's probably been a year and a half or 2 years. So stuff like that is going to be very hard to beat. But being consistent and always buying, always selling, it'll really favor your odds of making a better profit than just holding on to sealed product. And just in terms of control, if you're buying a sealed product, let's say you bought the Surging Sparks booster box, and that was worth, I don't know what it's actually worth, but let's say you paid $200. You honestly really have no control on whether that goes up or down. The only thing you could do is wait and hope it goes up. And then once it goes up, you have to actually put in the effort to sell it. And selling is a lot harder than people make it sound out to be, because it's very, very easy to say, oh, my profit or my sealed collection is up $10,000. But then to actually realize those gains is much harder. And the odds of you getting full market price when selling sealed product is extremely low, because the only people that would be buying, or not the only people, but a lot of the people that would be buying older sealed product is usually other resellers or other investors and people that don't typically pay full price because they're buying in bulk. So if you want an easy cash out, you're going to have to sell at a percentage of market, which luckily for sealed product, it's 80%, or 80 is the minimum or the standard, I would say. And you could usually get 85 to 90 if you find the right person, but that's still a 10% off discount, which when you think about it, let's say your profit doubled, you bought it for 200, it went up to 400, and then you sell it for 90%, you're technically not doubling. And then also if you're selling online, you have the shipping and the fees, which are applicable to selling singles too, but it's just the numbers become a lot lower than you would expect. And another great thing with investing into, or not investing, but buying and selling singles is that it's a lot more liquid in my experience. Unless you're selling the brand new set of a sealed product, it's very hard to make sales of things if they're not at a discount of market or very low margin. Because if I list a card to eBay, it could sell the same day, the same month, or the same however long. Sometimes I do have to hold on to it for a lot longer, but since they are a cheaper price, it's very easy to find a buyer. Whereas a booster box, not everyone has $200+ to go spend on a booster box. And you're limiting your audience when you're only focusing on investing into sealed product. And I know for certain people like Rudy, it makes perfect sense to only buy sealed product and just hold on to it and sell whenever you need to. Or like I don't know his exact business model, but I know he gets a bunch of it from his distributors when a new set comes out, and then he sells it to his patrons, and then he just holds on to the rest of it, which is, it works for him. So it definitely can be possible if you have the right sourcing and distribution, both internally and externally. And then the next thing, which is, it kind of plays in with my concept of that, I think it's a perfect thing to flip singles and then also buy sealed product in bear markets to hold on to for the long run. Because I do think investing in sealed product is a great thing. I'm just saying it shouldn't be your main focus when you're starting off. And here's why. When you're starting off, you have a very low amount of capital, most likely. So you can't go and spend $200 on a booster box and then just hold on to it. Because let's say you have $1,000 in total and you just drop $200 on a booster box, that's 20% of your capital, which will significantly slow down how much inventory you could buy to flip. And let's say in 2 years it doubles, which is great. That's not even like, that is a anomaly in terms of how investments typically perform, because you're expected 8% in the S&P per year. So to see something double in 1 to 2 years is not normal, and it should not be expected. And I think people will realize that if the market ever slows down, that sealed product doesn't just double every year, and it actually goes down sometimes, but eventually goes up. But expecting these extreme returns is not normal and won't happen forever, most likely. But on top of that, if you put that $200 in, you're slowing down what you can spend on liquid inventory to flip and make profit on. But even if it doubles, you're going to make, it sounds dumb to even say this because it's a great return, but you're going to make $200 in 2 years. And that dollar amount is very low, but obviously the percentage is very high. But if you allocated that $200 into buying inventory to flip for a consistent profit on your stores, eBay or TCG player, in that 2 year span, if you stick through with it, you're going to have a lot more money than just $200 in profit, because you're going to get that 10 to 20% profit, let's say, when you're just starting off. You can't have a high profit, but let's say you're getting 10 to 20% profit and you sell through, this is probably very generous, but let's say you sell through your entire inventory every month, which if you have a very small amount of inventory, it could be possible, especially if you're buying $5 to $10 cards and you're not dealing with just bulk and undesirable cards. It can be possible to sell through a lot of your inventory relatively quickly. So let's say you sell through it every month and you're compounding 20% profit on each month. In the span of 2 years, without including the compounding effect of, instead of having 200 to buy inventory, you now have 240, and then you'll have 400, and then 600. Like it'll, because that number will keep growing. Your amount of capital will keep growing. Without even counting that in, your profit percentage would be 240. And that's not assuming that that inventory that you bought will be going up in price. Obviously, the compounding would make this even, it would probably make it up to 1,000%. But all in all, the amount you would get from flipping and making consistent profit on flipping collections is going to very much outweigh what you would profit from holding on to sealed product and then selling it. And obviously, when you get to a larger inventory size and you have more freely available capital, you don't necessarily have to worry about it as much, and you can be more flexible with what you're buying. But when you're just starting off, your focus should be entirely on flipping, because that's just where you're going to make the most money. You're going to get the most experience too. And if you are trying to start a business out of this, you can't really just buy some stuff, hold on to it in the background for 2 years, and then that's it. You need to have a presence online. You need to have a storefront with sales and feedback growing. And there's just so many benefits, not even tied to the money that you get from the sales, but just overall with everything, like the things that I just mentioned, the feedback, sales, repeat buyers, everything you'll gain from selling things online rather than just holding on to sealed product. And one of the biggest things that like a lesson I learned earlier this year is that if you don't have the systems in place for selling sealed product, it can be very hard and very daunting. When I first started, maybe like year in, I started buying sealed product to hold on to because I had more capital available, and I saw like how the older boxes were performing. So I was like, let me just buy some booster boxes from people on Facebook and just hold on to it. And I did great with those. I bought Fusion Strike cases, Lost Origin, Battle Styles was not as good. And I got some Evolving Skies, not cases, but booster boxes. And obviously they did very well. But when I went to sell them, I took pictures of them, tried to post it on the Facebook groups. And the only people that would want to buy it were other resellers. And they were offering me 70%, 75%, 80%. I was so used to being able to sell things for above market that it kind of threw me off that I wasn't going to be able to do that with these. And maybe that's just because I was not doing it right. And I'm sure if I were to just list them on eBay, I probably would have had a better experience selling them, which I might try in the future. But right now I'm focusing on just letting it be available to the patrons. Whenever they want something, they could just reach out to me and I'll give them a discount off market, because I don't mind if it's for the patrons. So I'll probably just end up sticking with that. But to wrap it up, I feel like I went on a few tangents, but the main thing to focus on when you're just starting off is just buy and sell singles, get those quick flips. And it doesn't even have to be quick, but just learn the process and start flipping cards, because not only will you make more profit at the end of it, but you will build a brand, build repeat buyers, and you will gain a lot of experience. And I think that is very important for this type of business, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the proper ways to sell it and the proper trust in the community, it doesn't mean anything. So grow that first, and then you could focus on other opportunities, but that should be your main focus right now. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great one.